What up, guys? I am back. Um, was originally gonna do Man with the Golden Gun, but because how long today went, and I had to do some other shit, I just didn't have time to get to it. So I'm gonna save that for next Tuesday. So I figure we do the video I was originally supposed to do yesterday. I'm gonna list my 5 favorite movies from the '80s. Well, specifically 1980, because I want to make this a series where it'll be 5 to 10 about where I list my favorite movies from every year. So, like, let's say I'm gonna just jump to the '90s, for example. So, if I did like 1996, I'd list 5 to 10 favorite movies from that specific year. I honestly, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I didn't know where to fit it in. At least the last, if I've been thinking about this idea, at least the last few months, to be honest. I didn't know where to fit it. But I figure, why not now? Granted, I'm gunning for Mondays. I just Screen Rant decided to open their fucking mouth about Halloween, so I figure I'll do a video about that. But we'll do that today. But yeah, ideally, these are gonna be on Monday. That's ideally what I'm gonna be doing these. Um, so, um, yeah. So I want to make that a series. Have these last a few weeks, 5 to 10. But I got 5 today of my favorite movies, specifically from 1980. And I'm even including fucking Empire Strikes, but I have to. Yeah, Disney has ruined it. And lore wise, the movie's kind of ruined for me because we know what happens. But I can't, like, because I'm going to definitely have to include movies that, like, personally affected me. And that is one of those movies that has. So I can't, like, just act like it doesn't exist in 1980. I mean, come on. That was probably the biggest movie that you even, yeah, it's your Superman 2s, which I'm sorry, that's not on this list. Sorry, people. Um, but yeah. So tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing Dragged Across Concrete, and a Mel Gibson movie. Speaking of which, I actually might start doing Mel Gibson movies maybe soon. Um, like, well, minus like Lethal Weapons, I've done all those, but like, like, Patriot, Braveheart. So maybe I'll definitely start doing a Mel Gibson review series. Mad Max, like the original 3. So yeah, maybe not maybe. Fuck it, I'm gonna do it. We'll do a Mel Gibson review series. Fuck it, we'll kick it off with Dragged Across Concrete. We'll kick it off with that. So I'll do that tomorrow. Um, Thursday, Taken 2, and then Friday, um, Hills Have Eyes, the remake, the original one, and then Thursday. I mean, on Saturday or Sunday, I want to review Renfield, the new Nicolas Cage movie, the vampire one. There's actually a couple movies I want to see. I'm going to be seeing that Nefarious movie with Sean Patrick Flannery. I don't know if I'll review it. We'll see. I kind of see how because that one's like kind of going in blind. It's a newer movie. It's not based off an IP or anything. Like, it's like Renfield makes sense since I did a whole Nick Cage series. Speaking of which, I'm gonna eventually do Wicker Man because I thought of it like the other day. I'm like, that is the one I have not done. The meme, the bees. Yeah, so I'll do that one. I'll definitely review that one at some point. Maybe next week. We'll see. But definitely gonna do Renfield, so I'll probably review that one on maybe Sunday. Gunning for. We'll see about Saturday. Saturday or Sunday. And then for sure I'll do a Bands I Love this weekend. But yeah. Let's get into my top 5 of 1980. My number 5 is the original Friday the 13th. I have a lot of problems with this movie. More recent years, but I still think it's a decent movie, like, as a slasher. And I won't like take away its, because yeah, it has problems. I think the lead sucks. I think it has pacing issues. Like, if you rewatch it, it kind of just drags. And even for like Friday the 13th standards, the characters are that likable. Besides the one girl who gets killed with arrows, who I honestly think probably should have actually been the lead of the movie. She actually had some personality. Or even the girl that was maybe even trying to hook up with the. I'm thinking of Friday Part 2. But yeah, the girl who got killed with arrows, she should have probably been the lead. But anyway, besides that, the original Friday the 13th is definitely historic because this is the one that started all. And I think that's why, even though, yeah, in a lot of Friday the 13th circles, it's not the best Friday the 13th movie. It's not. But I definitely have fun with it. Pamela is a fun killer. I love the opening, the whole first person thing. Yeah, granted, they kind of copied that from Halloween, but I like that they did that like kind of all the way through. They're um the kills are creative, and I can personally turn off. Like I get it. There are some people out there who like some of the kills she does is a bit over. I don't necessarily think so. Like because she wasn't like going Jason, right? Like she wasn't like ripping arms off. She like even Kevin Bacon's where okay, she had to that's the one where I'm like that's the only one where maybe I can be like, okay, how the fuck did she know which spot he'd be laying on? But whatever. It looks cool. I think it was more for creativity, but relatively it was realistic. She was stabbing people, like the first girl she stabbed. Or like slit her throat. I like the creative of this. The music was good. Yeah, it does have pacing issues, but I like it's more of the lore. I think what makes that original Friday the 13th good is that last about 15-20 minutes where Pamela does the reveal. Betsy Palmer plays it great, where she talks about Jason. That switch up where she goes from like like you think like, oh, she's this loving old lady, middle-aged lady, and then she goes fucking crazy. And he's like, kill her, Jason. And he's like fucking talking about it out loud. It's like fucking great. So the lead sucks, but yeah. And then the ending is great. So yeah, I definitely recommend the original Friday the 13th. It works. It has its problems, but it's definitely one from 1980 you can't ignore. So I had to put this on my list. So that's my number 5. My number 4 is the original Prom Night. I think this is another classic 80s slasher. Very underrated. That maybe probably should have been a one-off because the sequels kind of go crazy because we're bringing in like ghosts and shit. But the original, you have Linda, Jesus fucking Christ, Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie, who I think she does great. And I actually really think she shows her range because this was like 2 years after Halloween. She could have just played it like another Laurie kind of character. And her character in this, I'd argue, really isn't like anything similar. Same with Terror Train, which that'll be another one I will review. I think that came out this same year too, so I'll review that one at some point. But I really like her character in this. I like that she plays it a bit different. Like she isn't like Lori in the original, it's like your prototypical final girl. She's not real. I mean, she's in the boys, but she's not like in the popular girl crew. She isn't like she's more in her studies. In this, she is kind of like the popular girl in this. I like the kills, the that chase scene in the end. I like the the realisticness of it. Like, the killer's kind of falling over himself. Wouldn't be surprised if Scream a little bit got that from a little bit of this movie. And the reveal scene, it's kind of sad too. She's holding her brother and he's like all fucking covered in blood because of what happened earlier. In the beginning of the film with his younger sister who died because of a bad prank gone wrong. It's a great horror classic, so I definitely recommend it. Decent music too. That scene where the dude's head gets chopped off and it like flies onto the stage. It's fucking great. So definitely a classic horror film and definitely one of my favorites from that year. So, and granted, this is definitely a more recent answer because probably a different. If you had asked me like a couple years ago, probably a different answer. But yeah. Number 3 is The Fog, directed by John Carpenter. One of my favorite John Carpenter movies. The cast alone: Adrienne Barbeau, Tom Atkins, Jamie Curtis. She's in this, and the story of this curse where these pirates show up through fog because of a curse laid on the city or the town. This is one of my favorite movies I've definitely reviewed. Just the cinematography, the music, I love Adrian Bardo's voice too when she's DJing, but also like when everything's going on, the fog happening. Just such a classic. And it's a great. It's almost like I do kind of consider it a somewhat zombie movie, and I think it's very well done. Um, that scene at the lighthouse is probably one of my favorite scenes where the fucking they're coming through and she's in the lighthouse, Adrian. Um, yeah, it's a horror class. It's another. It's more. Like, yeah, it's definitely horror, but yeah, great characters, just all around fun. Carpenter movie that's the one thing I've always loved about John Carpenter is his fucking versatility. The way he can. This was 2 years after Halloween. He could have went, oh, I'm just gonna do slashes forever. No, he switched it up. We're doing like kind of more. Let's do kind of like a somewhat zombie slash ghost thing. Um, and there's actually some pretty good kills in it. That scene where they're trying to get the kid is pretty creepy, and I think it's great. So I definitely recommend it. So that's another one for my favorites from that year. Now we're on to the top two. My number two is The Shining. I mean, what can I say about this movie? I mean, Jack Nicholson. This is his most famous movie. The twins, the cinematography, the story. Even this is a case where I'll admit I've not read the book, so I can understand why probably people who read the book do not like the movie. But for me, it worked. It's kind of like this is kind of what. Granted, I think Joker probably was inspired by this. I like movies where a character just has mental deterioration throughout the film, where like their mental health just falling down, or just this is like the biggest example of it, like where a man's mentality just goes crazier and crazier, and then we get the classic scene in the end with yeah, but I really like the thing about The Shining too is I'm big on cinematography, but if it's not just cinematography, because you can just make something look good, but if you can get really like good shots, but also good story, and I think that they really showcase that. I think that is the biggest thing. He Nicholson's been granted, yeah, he is kind of crazy in the beginning of the movie already. We all know Nicholson in movies, but I thought he still pulls it off personally. Like I'm big into that, and I think they really showcase it. Granted, it's a lot of imagery, so I can understand some people saying like, "Oh, this just is a bunch of fucking symbolism," but I think it captures it perfectly, and then that ending is just great. So definitely one I definitely recommend. This is a one of the biggest movies from that year for me. Um, Definitely gonna review it like in a solo review at some point. Maybe within the next month for sure, or maybe I'll save it for like October. We'll see. But number one is Empire Strikes Back. I mean, whatever I have to like kind of with these, because there's gonna be Star Wars. Like when we get to, I'll spoil. When we get to like 2005, that's probably gonna be like my number one or two. Will be Revenge of the Sith. I gotta take. I gotta turn off my like hatred for Disney right now. I can't deny that this movie was at one point. This is up there with like Jurassic Park for me. I rewatched this movie so many times. I love the tonal shift. I like them wrong. I love A New Hope, but I like the Hoth battle, Vader. Han, Luke, and Leia. To me, at their height, Han and Leia. Will they, won't they, and the chemistry between the two, and the way they did the will they, won't they. I really think they did it perfectly. You know, Bringing in Lando, the different planets we got to see. Because at this point the budget got better, so we got to see like Bespin and Hoth. It wasn't like because in A New Hope, yeah, it really was like just pretty much Tatooine, and then I think Yavin 4, but you were more just inside the rebel base, so you didn't even really get to explore. But I understand it was 1977, so they probably couldn't fully do that. So like even in 1980, just 3 years later, they kind of got to do it. And then Vader, to me, Vader was at his best in this movie. Not just that iconic scene in the end, which I'll get to. I just think in general, like, the way he just when he killed like Captain Nita, man. Ugh. Even as a kid, that always got me. It was like, holy, like that was like when you think Vader was at his scariest, it was this film. Luke's arc, going to Dagobah, and just yeah, this to me was the film. And then Luke eventually facing Vader, and Vader's toying with him the whole time, and the music got better. Like they definitely like John Williams added more to the score. And yeah, I mean, and then you get that iconic "I'm your father" scene, and that like that to this day is just me. That is everyone knows that scene. And the ending, I just this film. Granted, I don't watch it as much now because of what happened, and lore wise, it's hard just because I know where everything goes. And Star Wars is very intricate to the lore, so if it's ruined, it's hard for me to go back and watch this one now. But I have to still include it. Like I watched this movie so much as a kid. To me, that when and even just if you really think about it, when you think 1980, you do kind of think this film. This film was one of the biggest things from that year. So yeah, I could not include it. Like I could not include it. I mean, whatever I think of Disney and whatever I think of the lore and whatever I think of Star Wars now, I had to include it. So yeah, Empire Strikes Back is a classic, and maybe one day maybe some point I can try to go back and watch it and try to enjoy it. But yeah, it's still a great one, so I had to include it. But yeah, so that's my favorite films from 1980. We'll eventually get to 81. I'm trying to do 81 next week. I'm going to try to do it on Monday next week. And then tomorrow will be Dragged Across Concrete. So another I think it will be good. Just Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, I've not seen a bad Mel Gibson movie. I'm going to be honest, that I can think of, right? I can't think of one. Like even his newer stuff that from what I've seen have been good. So definitely going to watch it. And yeah, like I said earlier in the video, I'll be doing Mel Gibson movies. So maybe next week we'll do I'll see how I'm feeling. I don't know. I was trying to see if maybe we'll do Patriot, but part of me wants to save that for like, 4th of July. Either 4th of July or I'll save that for maybe even Veterans Day or something like that. Like I want to save that for like one of those kind of holidays. Maybe I'll do like Braveheart next week. We'll see. I'll look into something of Mel Gibson's catalog, and maybe we'll start Mad Max, as that can hold me for a few weeks. Actually, I might do that. So, stay tuned. But that's my top 5 from 1980. 81 will be next week, and yeah. But cheers, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. So, talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.